There are 14 teams that I believe have a chance to win the national championship this upcoming 2023 college football season. I'm going to give them to you. What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports. If you missed the video before this, I went through the 24 teams that I thought had a chance to make the college football playoff. We were just talking about making it into the playoff, though. This video, I'm talking about the teams that I think can get to the playoff, win 2 games, win a national championship. So we're going to go through here, and I'll give you these 14 teams. Let's start with Alabama. I think, and I'm going in alphabetical order. No, I don't think Alabama has the best chance. There are some teams on here that I really don't think have a legitimate chance, but there's potential. These are the teams that have the potential. So let's look at reasons why they can, reasons why they won't. Why they can? Well, they've got talent. I mean, this team, this roster is very talented. And they've got Nick Saban as their head coach, who right now maybe isn't the GOAT anymore. Maybe Kirby Smart has passed him, but he's still one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in college football. And the reasons why they won't, well, they're youth. They're going to be very young this year. They lost a ton of production. And then the passing game without Bryce Young, what is that going to look like? That could be a concern as well. It's going to be a different look this year for Alabama. And it's kind of boom or bust. Maybe it works. Maybe they wind up getting to the playoff, maybe even getting all the way to the national championship and winning it. But I could also see this team losing a couple of games in the regular season again. It's really just boom or bust for this Alabama team. A high potential, but a lot of room for them to potentially lose some games, especially if you look at that schedule. And I already know the comments on this video. Everyone is going to focus on the why they won't, the negatives. I'm doing this for every team. I'm giving a couple of positives, a couple of negatives. This video, if your team is in this video, that is a good thing. That means I think your team has a chance to win the national championship. So don't focus on the negatives. Again, I had to come up with something for every team. And so maybe it's not a huge deal, but again, I did come up with something for every team. So let's go now to Clemson. Clemson, another team that I think has potential to win the national championship. Now, the run game is going to be really, really good, one of the best in the country. Their defense is going to be really strong as well. Reasons why they won't, well, the passing game. Cade Klubnik stepping in there, you would expect, based off of what we've seen. I think he's going to be very solid for them, an improvement. Depth, also, back to the passing game. Wide receiver, though, who's going to step up there? This team just has not had those guys at wide receiver the last few years. That's a concern for me. So it's just the overall pass game. And then depth, if you look at the starters for Clemson, they can match up with anyone in college football. But if you look at the second string guys, there's a drop off from teams like Alabama and Georgia because they haven't used the transfer portal and their recruiting classes have not been elite in the last couple of years. So I think depth could be a concern if they have some injuries. I don't think this team, I think for Clemson to win the national championship, they're going to have to stay really healthy. Let's just put it that way. Some people are still having a little bit of a hard time with this one, but Florida State has potential, I'm telling you, to be really, really good this year and potentially to make a run at a national championship. Reasons why they can, well, the experience that they have on this roster. If you look at what they did in the transfer portal, they basically filled all of their holes with the portal. So you're not counting on young guys, freshmen coming in. You're counting on experienced veteran players that they got in the transfer portal and really filled all their needs. They just did a really good job at getting the right guys in the transfer portal. And because of that, they've got depth. You got a lot of veterans, and then you've got your young guys behind them. So this is a really talented and deep team. Why they won't, though, are they talented enough? Are they going to be able to go toe-to-toe with a Georgia or Alabama? And that's going to be a reason for a lot of these teams. You just wonder, do they have enough talent to beat elite teams 2 weeks in a row? Florida State, I think, is one of those teams that's a question mark with. And then wide receivers, Johnny Wilson's great, but he's going to need some help. They're going to need some guys to step up. They seem to throw to him every time they needed a play last year. Well, teams might take that away this year. They're going to have a whole season of film from them last year, and they're going to do everything they can to stop him. So some guys are going to have to step up there. That would really be my only concern because, again, if you look at the roster at all the different positions, this team's in great shape. Georgia, the team that won it all last year, of course, they're going to be in this conversation. The team is going to be really good. They've got talent. I think this is probably the most talented roster in the country. and they have more experience even than in Alabama. So that's why I still think Georgia is going to be better than Alabama this year, even though Alabama's really talented. But they had a great class, but Alabama didn't do a ton in the transfer portal. So yeah, anyways, Georgia, they're talented, they're loaded. This is the best roster, I think, in the country, and they've got the belief. I mean, they've done it 2 years in a row. They're going to go out there with that swagger, thinking that this is going to be a three-peat, and really no reason to argue against them when you look at this roster. What the reasons that you might would, though, the quarterback position, new quarterback, there's no guarantee they're going to be great or even good, but I'm not really that concerned. And then the defensive line, they don't have that guy this year that's going to be a big disruptor in the backfield. So maybe that's a concern. But again, it's a stretch here. There really aren't any major concerns for Georgia. This team's going to be really good, and that's why they're pretty much everyone's preseason number one. How about LSU? This team, I think, also has potential to make a run this year. You look at the offense, the weapons that they have on that side of the ball, starting with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, the wide receivers they have, the running backs. I mean, this is just going to be a really good offensive team, I should say. The offensive line should be solid. The depth on the offensive line is a concern. You see that in the why they want. Depth is an issue there. Linebacker depth, secondary depth, cornerbacks. Are they going to be good enough at that spot? That's a concern for me as well. But back up to why they can. Harold Perkins. I didn't put many individual players on this video, maybe just a couple. But we've seen him just completely wreck an offense. Look at what they did to Alabama last year. And he was the main reason why their defense was so successful. He might be the most talented player in the country on that side of the ball this year. The speed that he has at that linebacker hybrid pass rusher spot, whatever you want to call it, he's a game changer. And with him on defense, with the offense that they have, and the pieces around him, if they can step up on that defensive side of the ball, that's where the potential is for LSU to possibly win a national championship this year. Michigan, another team that I think has the potential. You look at their run game, man, the offensive line that they have built, the depth on that offensive line, the running backs they have, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Can anyone stop this run game? And then you look at the experience. Michigan and Florida State, those are two teams that did a great job of adding guys in the transfer portal, players that will contribute, players that will start right away. They did a really good job there. And so they're both veteran teams. They have a ton of experience. That's why I've had Michigan at number 2 and Florida State at number 3 on my latest top 25 rankings because of the talent and the experience that those teams have. Reasons why they want passing game. Can they take a step forward there? That'll be a question mark. J.J. McCarthy, for the most part, was solid last year, but I still think he has some room for improvement, and they need some guys to step up at wide receiver. That's a concern as well. And then it talks about the talent. Yeah, this is a talented team, an experienced team, but do they have the talent? Do they have enough to, because they're not going to have an offense that is going to go out there and throw for 400 yards. They're just not going to have that type of offense. And to win these playoff games, it kind of seems like you need that. And so if you have to have some things in the passing game and you don't have those, do you have enough talent? Do you have enough to win in the trenches against a Georgia or an Alabama? Like I've been saying, from these teams. Do they have enough talent, enough speed on defense? That's a question. I think they might not. It's hard to say, but if they don't win a national championship, then that could be a reason why. Maybe they're just not quite talented enough. Again, they're not bringing in top 5 recruiting classes like some of these other teams year in and year out. Notre Dame, another team that I think you could put on this list. Some question marks as far as can they get to that point. But Sam Hartman, with what he brings to the passing game, that could be a game changer for them. The running game, they've got a stable of backs, a great offensive line. Going to be tough to stop their run game. Why they want wide receivers. You've got Sam Hartman. You've got a guy that can get the football out to these guys, but can the receivers step up? That's an area where they have not been great in recent years, so I'm a little concerned there. And then just like a lot of these teams, do they have enough talent? Do they have enough depth? You look at the starters on this team. Do they have enough talent on that back end? The guys that are going to have to play in games. that is maybe a concern for Notre Dame. But this is a team with a lot of potential with Sam Hartman at quarterback. I'm telling you, if they get a really good passing game to go with their run game, this is going to be a tough offense to stop. Ohio State is up next. This team is always on this list. They've got probably the best running back wide receiver group in the country. Maybe you can make some debates there, but they are loaded at wide receiver, loaded at running back. Those skill positions really, really good. And then the front seven really good. Defensive line should be really good for them. The linebackers have a lot of experience coming back. So I think that part of the defense will be good. Why they won't? Well, you got some holes on the offensive line. Losing two really good tackles. Can they protect the quarterback? Can they run the football? We will see. And then the secondary. You lose a couple of really good players from last year. This was a secondary. If you look at their passing defense, you look at their stats, this was not a bad secondary. But I went and looked this up. I should have wrote the numbers down, but I looked up what they did, what their secondary, their pass defense did against the really good teams they played. So Georgia, Penn State, Michigan. Looked at what their secondary did versus those teams and what those teams normally average in the passing game, and it was crazy. Like, these teams were throwing the ball for a lot more than they normally did against Ohio State. Maybe it's just because that's the way the games went. You maybe don't want to read too much into that, but can they step up in the big games? That'll be a question mark for Ohio State. They've got a decent secondary. Again, I'm not saying they're terrible, but is it good enough? Is it good enough to win a national championship if they get against a good passing attack? And they probably will. If you play 2 playoff games, more than likely at least one of those games is going to be against a team that's really good throwing the football. So is that going to be good enough for them? Because there's a lot of potential for Ohio State, but there are some question marks, just like with all of these teams. And you notice I didn't even put the quarterback on here because I'm pretty confident that they're going to be fine at that spot. I mean, we've really haven't seen with Ryan Day. We haven't seen Ohio State have a bad quarterback. Maybe it's not as good as C.J. Stroud, but I think they'll be fine at that position. Oregon is up next. You look at Bo Nix. I actually gave kind of 3 reasons here, just because that's just when I look at the roster, this is what jumps out. So Bo Nix, what he's got on offense, he's a game changer for them. Got weapons around him as well. But then you look at the defensive line and the secondary. They are loaded there on that part of the defense. Really good defensive line, really good secondary, a ton of depth at those spots. That's going to be their strength. But why they won't? Well, linebacker and wide receiver depth are an issue. You look at the linebackers they've got coming back this year, just not a ton of production at that spot. And wide receivers kind of this, their top 3 or 4 guys really solid, but they don't have much behind them. And then the offensive line, they lost several starters, so that's definitely a concern. It's usually when teams lose a lot of their offensive line, they don't go out and have a great year. So we'll see. But I think there are a lot of pieces for Oregon to make a run this year. Penn State is up next. Penn State, you look at their run game and their running back duo, really, really good. Offensive line looks strong again this year. Defense looks really good. No real issues there on that side of the ball. Why they won't? Well, I think depth could be a concern. They're not the deepest team. If you go through and look at the entire roster, that's a concern for me. And then the passing game. So with Drew Allar, I know a lot of expectations for him, but we haven't really seen it yet. And so that's a concern. Are they going to be good enough throwing the football to complement this run game? Can the receivers and quarterback get on the same page and have a good year in the passing game? That'll be interesting to watch there with Penn State. Tennessee is up next. Their pass game, run game, really, it's the offense here. Their offense is going to be really, really good. You look at what they have coming back. You look at what Josh Heupel has already proven that he can do. No concerns at all with the offense. They're going to be good. Defense, though, there are some concerns there, especially with depth. Their starters would pretty decent, but you look behind them and they don't have a lot of depth at a lot of these positions. So that's a concern for me with Tennessee. Offense is there, but is the defense good enough? They don't have to be elite on defense, but are they going to be good enough? And then we go to Texas. Texas has a lot of potential this year. You look at their passing game, the receivers they have. You got Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning is there. I don't know how that's going to play out exactly. I would assume Quinn Ewers will be the guy. This is a really good offensive line. I know they lose a couple of really good running backs, but I think this offensive line might be even better this year. And so I think because of that, the run game will be fine as well. Why they won't? Well, defense, they lose some really good players from this defense. I think the defense should be pretty solid, but depth could be a concern. So on that side of the ball, yes, I'm a little concerned about the depth. And then on offense as well, do they have enough talent, enough depth to make a serious run to win a couple of playoff games and win a national championship? And then we got USC. All right, so this one is, I know I had like 2 reasons for every team, but for USC, it's pretty simple. They've got the offense. Do they have the defense? That's the question. And just like with Tennessee, they don't have to have an elite defense, but is it going to be good enough? They're going to have to improve some on that side of the ball. If you look at the roster, I think that it's there. I think the pieces are there to where this team could beat the elite teams because the offense is going to be there. They are going to be loaded on that side of the ball, maybe the best offense in the country. So that's the only question. Is the defense good enough to win a national championship? We shall see. And then Washington, our final team, I think the offense, very similar to USC. They're loaded on that side of the ball. Maybe not quite to the level of USC, but they're going to be really good. The receivers they've got coming back, you got Penix back, the running backs, they are going to be dangerous on offense. The defensive line is going to be really good. That defensive line, and a lot of times that's what you need. You need to be able to score points. You need a defense that can disrupt the other team's offense, a defensive line, I should say. And I think they're going to have that. And that's why I think this team has the potential to win the whole thing. Why they won't, though, I think depth is a concern. Do they have the talent, the depth to compete with these elite teams? And then the secondary, they've done some things. They've added some pieces there to where I think they are not going to be bad in the secondary, but are they going to be good enough? Kind of like with Ohio State. Are they going to be good enough if they have to if they have to play against a team that is elite in the passing game to win a national championship? So those are the 14 teams. I think some people are going to have some problems with some teams being left off of this list. But when I really look at it, those are the 14 teams that I think have a chance to win the national championship in this upcoming 2023 college football season.